Have you found yourself navigating a dark night of the soul? Are you craving a deeper connection with the divine feminine? Are you ready to integrate the balanced union of the masculine and feminine within? Then let's get started on the journey towards wholeness to reclaim your sovereign soul. My name is Cynthia Clark. Over the past several decades, I have undergone many dark nights of the soul. My healing journey has been a reclamation of my sovereign divinity. Whether you're just starting out on your self-healing journey or have been exploring techniques for many years, Discover Divinity offers an opportunity to uncover the new possibilities for discovering and reclaiming the innate wisdom within. It is time to discover the new possibilities. It is time to discover you. Have you ever felt like you're just going through the motions, wondering what it would take to feel truly alive again? In this episode, we explore what happens when you stop living on autopilot and start trusting yourself, your path, and something even bigger. We're talking about the messy, beautiful, real kind of trust and how it can shift everything. Our guest, Jennifer Saunders, knows that journey firsthand, from questioning everything to discovering the radical power of play. Jennifer has built a life around trust, creativity, and the kind of presence that changes rooms and lives. We'll unpack how she got there, what life looked like before it all clicked, and the small, meaningful steps anyone can take to begin their own journey toward more joy, more meaning, and more life. So if you're ready to reconnect with yourself, take that first small step, and maybe even laugh a little along the way, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Discover Divinity podcast, Reclaim Your Sovereign Soul. I am Cynthia Clark, the founder of Discover Divinity and discoveringdivinity.com. This is a space where we dive into the art of living fully, trusting deeply, and rediscovering joy in places that we least expect it. In today's conversation, this one is going to be all about transformation, and it's not the overnight kind, but it's the kind that unfolds through small choices, quiet courage, and a willingness to play. I am joined by the Jennifer Saunders, whose story is both relatable and remarkable. And before we begin, I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to her, and then I will tell you what this episode is going to be all about. Jennifer Saunders is a chief mojo maker, dream chaser, and rebel coach. She is the kind of person who makes you believe in yourself again. And because I know her personally, I can confirm how great she is. So you're going to love having her today. She is a life coach, an energy practitioner, a speaker, and a firecracker of inspiration, helping women shake off self-doubt, chase their biggest dreams, and finally trust themselves like their lives depend on it, because it really does. And when she was talking to me prior to this, she said her resume isn't impressive, but I don't know if I agree about that. But she said that her resume doesn't define her. She actually has spoken on big stages, so I think that's pretty amazing. She's coached countless women through life transformations and built a career out of helping people step into their power. But what really matters is that she has run a 100-mile ultra marathon, like on purpose. I cannot believe she's done this. So this is amazing. We're going to talk more to her about this. She's directed races, been a traveling singer, a mom, married, divorced, and discovered that home isn't a place, it's actually inside of you. So she aims to love people the way that God does, full, fiercely, and without hesitation. Jennifer isn't about polished perfection. She's about real talk. and real freedom. And whether she is leading a retreat, running up a mountain, or helping women kick their fears to the curb, her message is simple. You are more courageous than you think. You are more powerful than you know, and your dreams, they're waiting on you. So, welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I actually haven't listened to that or have it read back to me. I wondered if the right person was sitting in the chair.
Well, you're pretty amazing. So, thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Thank you.
coming.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
my pleasure.
yes, I would love to give the audience just a little bit of a cap of what we're going to be talking about today, and then I'm excited to dive in if you're good with that.
Let's do it.
All right. So today we're going to be covering some topics of what it feels like to live with trust and aliveness. And sometimes that can look very different for different people. And what we're going to cover today is more like stepping out of the survival mode into a thriving mode. And we're going to talk about your story, how, like, what that transformation was and how it shifted. And so, really get into that spark about how you found your way into a whole new way of being that was rooted in what you call mighty play. And so, number one, we're going to talk about what your life looked like before this trust, play, and presence came into the picture, and then that moment that sparked real change for you. Then we're going to talk about how to build trust in ourselves and what that was for you, like when you were moving into something bigger, and talking about maybe some of those uncertain moments.
Yeah.
Then number three, I'm going
I
to talk
guess
about, yes, we're going to talk about five things. So number three is what living alive actually means and how to come back to presence when we slip back into the autopilot. Number four, you've talked about mighty play, and to know as adults that play is not just for kids. It's a vital healing and creative force that we all need more of. And then number five, and most importantly, some practical steps that we can all walk away with to begin reconnecting with our own sense of trust, vitality, and joy. So, whether a listener out there is in the season of doubt or burnout or simply longing for more, this conversation is going to offer them tangible rituals, gentle reminders, and a kind of inspiration that doesn't necessarily shout, but it's going to invite our guests into doing something new and different. So let's go ahead and get started. I think what I would like to talk about maybe before I get into my first question about your journey was a little bit how we know each other. And the first time that we met, I remember that we were both part of a holistic healing group.
Yes.
And I remember the first time I may have been teaching or facilitating a class, and I remember you came into the room, and I remember you sitting on the floor in the very back. I mean, the room was full. It could have been that the chairs were all plumb full, and you just walked in very quietly. But after the class, like, we sat down and we chatted, and we actually figured out that we actually grew up in the same hometown, and so
Yeah,
we
I
had
went
a
to high
lot to.
school with your younger brother,
Yeah, well, older brother.
older brother. Yes.
Yes, he would love to be called my younger brother, but he's not.
Dad.
No, so it was really fun to just kind of like meet you for the first time and really, that firecracker energy that I described in the beginning, like, to see that part of you was amazing, to see that that is a part of your innate gifts and what you bring to the planet. And every time we've ever talked, you continue to hold that line and hold that part of yourself, even through some of these really, really hard things that you've been through. So I would love to just get a little
Yeah.
bit of your feedback on our first meeting, and then we'll get into a little bit more about your personal journey.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you remember that because I don't remember all of that. I
Mm-hmm.
think um when I met you, I was in a challenging space in my own world and accepting a bunch of changes and discovering parts of me that we'll talk about later. And I came to that class. I was invited. I believe a friend told me about it, and I had known of the group, and so I honestly came to the class very guarded. Before we hit record, I think I told you I had a wall up because I was
Mm-hmm.
very unsure about being really in any kind of space, let
Mm-hmm.
alone in a space with people were who I felt were probably going to be of religious nature and
Mm-hmm.
of a particular religious nature.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then just I also think in a place of judgment for myself because I I wanted to be where you were at, and I wasn't sure
Mm-hmm.
how that was. I have been there. I had been there, and then watching that in my current state, I was like, just I had so much just angst, and I didn't
Yeah.
know if I was going to fit in. I didn't know. I just had a lot of judgment. So I'm grateful that you remember the pieces that you remember, and I enjoyed the class. I was really
Mm-hmm.
grateful that I actually did it, that I let some of those walls come down, but that you saw the firecracker, that you saw
Mm-hmm.
the actual real me behind the walls.
I did. I mean, and that's what I love about bringing part of my gifts to the world too, is that I can innately see who people are.
Yeah.
And even though you were going through a difficult time, there was a guard, there was a part of you that was unsure. I've seen this part of you that's remained true no matter what. And so I do feel like that fire has been a driver that has actually facilitated you as you have gone through those questions, you have gone through those difficult times that made you move into different perspectives. And I that's where I would love to have you like maybe go in a little bit deeper to talk about your personal story, before you had the clarity, before you had the frame, the fireworks or these structures that helped you find this joy in life. You talk about those walls, you talk
Yeah.
about some of those self-judgments
Yeah.
and what was going on in your life, because you did talk about, oh, I want to be there, and I know how hard that is when you're not in the rainbows and roses stage. Like when we
Oh, I
talk
was in
about the
the
dark,
rainbow stage.
yeah, yeah. I'm excited to talk more about that. And the dark night of the soul stages, right? Like those ones aren't a literal rainbow and roses
No.
experience, right? Like those are difficult, and especially when you have some difficult things going on, and fear of being rejected, fear of what others will think of you, that can be so incredibly hard. And so I would love for you to share just a little bit more. And I loved your little slide in um, with the rainbow, because I love rainbows and
I,
I love
I do
roses.
too.
And as far as being in a dark night of the soul, like it literally is nothing that you wish upon another human. Like these things are so
Absolutely.
hard. And so tell me more, like give me more dimension
I'm
about
like,
like
oh my gosh, Cynthia, like, where do you even want me to start?
yeah,
Uh,
it's yeah, just
where do I start? I feel I'm going to start with this is one, I'm human, and I really, part of what I do is really practice being human.
mhm,
And and I've always said that I want to love people like God and Christ love people, how they really love people, not
mhm,
how I was taught they loved people.
mhm.
And when for me that meant like when we want to love people, we're going to get to experience. Can we swear here?
Yes,
Going to
yes.
get to
I've
experience
already I've
it.
already broken
Like,
that.
okay, like that's just I'm accustomed to like this is part of my own new growth is like saying things how I feel them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that comes out as swear words.
Yes,
So
yes.
you, if someone on here is offended, I'm sorry.
Well, I probably already offended them in a couple episodes, so it's
Okay,
okay.
good,
Like I,
good.
I and that's something that I teach my clients when I work with them is we really are ingrained in high demand societies
Yes,
to show up as a cookie cutter, perfect, good girl, good boy energy. And when we're taught that anger's bad, right? Or all of these negative emotions are bad. And so typically, I mean, I'm in the work that I do, helping people unleash these repressed emotions in healthy ways.
right.
And something that's very, very healthy. I mean, I may have some individuals that disagree with me, but it's very, very healthy when you are processing a lot of difficult things to be able to find those outlets. And if you are writing out a whole page full of swear words and energy that is just bubbling up, it is so healthy for you to be able to have an outlet to let
Yes.
that go. Like generationally, we were taught to always just pull your bootstraps up, toxic positivity, like always just put on the smile and know that there's some lesson coming from this. And it's not reality. And, the amount of repressed emotions that we have, not only individually as humans, but through society and generationally. Like, this is why we have volcanoes blowing up all over the place, human volcanoes,
I
right?
100% agree.
So,
Yes,
yes, we can be authentic because that's what being human is all about.
absolutely. Okay, well, and just again, we're an entire spectrum of emotions. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe even in what you just said, we were taught that we could show a certain range of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But in my own healing and my own growth, I've learned that when I see it as like a music mixer keyboard. I don't know, all the equalizing of all the different sounds and the tones and the inlets and the outlets and
Mm-hmm.
when you dampen some, you dampen all. And so
Yeah.
I love this space that I move into, that I have moved into, of like recognizing that, and that we get to experience an entire range of emotions. And me personally, I think a lot of the issues that we have going on today is because we don't recognize that we are this entire spectrum of emotions. And especially if you're a highly sensitive person or someone who feels a lot and you don't understand it, or you don't have the tools to understand that. So um, that's part of what we do over here too, is helping people, starting with myself, to recognize that we're a whole range of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
um, I think I'm going to start it with I grew up in a very high demand religion. I don't typically say the name, but I decided I've got to start saying the name.
Mm-hmm.
um, I grew up with it being called the Mormon religion. I don't know, it's LDS, whatever they call it now.
Yes,
um,
they've changed that.
I know that lots of them don't like being called that, but for me, that's what it will always be. I grew up with that for 50 plus
Yeah,
years.
they
Um,
go by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints now.
yeah, thank you. All of a sudden, that just like slipped my mind.
Yeah, that's okay. And it has typically I keep it pretty generic. But I hear what you're saying too. I think that we've been taught don't rock the boat, right?
That's
And we don't
that's
want to
very
shake anything, but it also in a way is discounting your personal experience to
absolutely,
have to try to protect everyone around you and feel like you're walking on eggshells.
yeah.
And that can be very highly traumatic
Well, and it makes
as
it
well.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for knowing that and
Mm-hmm.
speaking that. That's a discussion that Leah and I have been having often lately, of
Mm-hmm.
just like, as part of authenticity is how much so it's that piece of like, in my journey now, I get to be I get to be the villain. I never wanted to be the villain. I always had to be the good
Mm-hmm.
girl. I had to be the girl who was, in deep service and in deep spirituality or religiosity, the one who was wise, the one who was caring, the one who, now I'm in this space of I get to be the villain, and that feels really, it still
Mm-hmm.
feels really hard for me, but the villain is really, it's really just me using my own voice and coming, it's all the things we're going to talk about today, that coming home to myself, that learning to trust myself, that learning to
Mm-hmm.
recognize my own voice and know that I can listen and I can follow my voice
Mm-hmm.
instead of all of the other voices out there. It's not, I can be obedient to myself
Mm-hmm.
and not be obedient to a system or someone who tells me how life should be or how I should be in order to be okay in this life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so part of that for me is, and I find it interesting that this is the day we're doing this podcast interview on, because I woke up with a lot of these thoughts on my mind today, in that
Mm-hmm.
space between awake and sleep, and how much I've been unwilling to be the villain because it feels crappy.
Oh,
But
it
really the
does.
villain is just me using my own voice and speaking my own truth, which I'm pretty good at, except when it comes to this one area, because we were taught, don't speak against it, don't make it look bad, the system,
Mm-hmm.
the religion, and if you want to leave, then you walk away and you just stay quiet.
Yes, and that,
And I've done that, and I'm
yeah,
not going to anymore.
yeah, no, and that's the thing, is because you do love and you care for the people who have chosen to remain in that system,
I have
and
family still in that system,
absolute,
friends in the system, one.
absolutely, and so like being able to preface, like sharing the truth of you has nothing to do with trying to shake their boat or rattle their cage. Um, but what happens is you have to feel feel okay with speaking your reality, because what I have noticed with individuals who have gone through faith transition, they have gone through very deeply wounding, traumatic experiences with structures that do this. The way that the structure is set up to say, shh, don't you dare say that anything we do is wrong, it's always about you, is actually, I think that there's a psychological term for it. I'm like, I need that psychological term to come into my head, but I don't have it right now. But it's very manipulative.
Yes.
And it's not reality, because for an organization to believe that they don't do anything wrong, or that they're not obligated to apologize for some harmful things or harmful decisions that they have made, is actually a form of narcissism.
Absolutely.
And so there's different layers and forms of narcissism, and it maybe, who knows, like how hard that's going to be to hear. But it's real, and
Yeah.
it's happening to so many individuals
Well, I feel
that,
like we can find that term in David Hassan's work.
oh
Is it David
yes,
Hassan
mm-hmm,
in his bite model? I'll look up his work if you want to understand some of these pieces.
yes,
Great work.
yeah, it's a
It's
very,
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, it's very dangerous and it's very harmful. And as you are talking about being the villain in someone else's story, that's what happens, for a lot of people that are somehow, some way betrayed or violated by a high demand institution or an abusive relationship, and then to have that go against the individual who left or walked away. It's another layer of abuse that's not healthy. And so if there's one thing that I could, vocalize, is that perpetuating this, even if you have chosen to stay in the organization, I believe that people that stay in the organization, that's beautiful, that's perfect for you. And if that's where you find your connection to God and your closeness to Christ, that's beautiful. But not everyone has had that experience, and it can be very, very difficult for individuals, and to keep pushing this narrative is very, very toxic.
I love it. And I will say I had a great experience there until
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. My soul, I've always had a soul that I I wouldn't have thought of it as a rebellious soul, but it must be. I created a company called Righteous Rebels, which is really grating for people. They're like, what, righteous and rebels? They don't. That's exactly what it
Yeah.
is. I feel a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
is those pieces of me that have wanted to push against the system but didn't dare because I was a very obedient um
Mm-hmm.
child and person. And I mean, don't let's be real, I did stuff to get attention or to like be seen because I was so good. I just got overlooked a lot. I lived to like have the praise of other people and to have the praise of God. And I had these points where I decided that something needed to be different in my world. And organically, some personal development started to come in. Just pieces of me started to wake up. Pieces of me that wanted a bigger picture, that felt there was something far bigger than what I was living and what I was being. I was married to a very beautiful soul. We had two daughters together. Um, we each had our own humanness and our own mistakes and stuff that we were moving through. And this is probably the where I my would say people would say my rebelliousness came in, is that I started to listen to my own heart. I wanted to know God in a different way instead of this God that was a punishing God or just up there somewhere waiting to administer punishment if I did something wrong. And I remember I was at a fire walk one time, and it had snowed all day. I was I was cold, but I was in this amazing atmosphere. And as it was getting dark, way off in the distance, I saw this light on a hill. And for some reason, that beckoned to me. It was calling to me, like, hey, there's more to this. And it became this beacon for me. And I didn't know what that beacon was at that point, other than I felt it deep in my soul. And so I started to go inward a bit and be like, what is this thing? And at that point, my life started having one of those dark nights of the soul. The man that I was married to was really in his own struggles, and got to go to prison. And so, you're dealing with that. And then this beautiful thing of my own dark night came wafting in. Uh, and I had met a woman. We had gone to this conference, and I met a couple of people, and one of them just kind of rocked my world. And I didn't know why. I just thought, oh, she had on a running shirt. Oh, cool. We run there. We have commonalities. And little did I know that it was waking up parts of me that I had maybe always had a curiosity about, but actually no languaging for or around. And recognized that I was going to get to go through my own rubbing off of rough edges, and my own getting to go inward, and recognizing that I didn't just it wasn't just this that she was wearing a running t-shirt, but that there were feelings, there were things like inside of me moving that I had never experienced before. Even being married for the many years that I was married, I had never experienced those things. And so I think that's where things really started to shift for me. I did a 12-step program. My first 12-step program that the church used to do was called He Did Deliver Me from Bondage. I sat down diligently every day for 3 months and did that program to try and get rid of these feelings that were now like felt like taking over my soul and my body and my life and my thinking, of like, because something was waking up inside of me. And I did that 12 steps to try and get rid of what I thought was my gayness,
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of a part of me. And I got to step 11, I loved that program, by the way. It was really a beautiful thing in my life to recognize that we all have issues. We all have addictions. We all have something that can that rocks our soul at some point or another. We all have things, even when it looks like we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember the moment that I approached my husband at the time and I just said, "Hey, I think there's an issue. Um, I I I think that I might be gay." And his
Mm-hmm.
response was one that really caught me off guard because he kind of laughed and he goes, "Duh, I've known that all along."
Wow.
And I was kind of shook because I thought, well, you could have clued me in, And so I think that's where these big life shifts started coming from. One of them came when I had a brother go to prison. Um, then my husband got to go to prison, and then I'm having my own issues, and so these just all these things started happening, um, and I remember thinking, how do I do both?
Mm-hmm.
How do I love God and myself at the same time? Um, Thinking that God was at the time was my religion. Even though I knew there was a separation of the two, somewhere they were the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah, that was a big one for me, and just recognizing like I'm I'm gonna have to figure some stuff out, and just I don't know, listening to people's. I'm like, how do I even say that? Like having the secret, but not wanting to have the secret, and noticing
Mm-hmm.
how much it eats up inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to want to talk about it and to start saying little bits to people who you feel like you can trust and watching their reactions
Mm-hmm.
was gut wrenching. There were some very kind, loving people who
Mm-hmm.
did their best to hide maybe how they really felt.
Yeah.
Um, but I just remember at one point thinking, I don't want to be that girl. I don't want to be that girl who people look at and go,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I knew that that would come, and I remember thinking, wow, people will judge me more harshly because I say I'm gay than and they will forget that my husband went to prison and that I
Mm-hmm.
got to go through all of that.
Wow. That's big, Jen, and I appreciate you sharing that. And my hope and my intention too with you sharing your story is to be able to give someone else out there who has struggled with exactly the same thing the ability to know that they're not alone, first of all, and to be able to watch, that internal struggle that you had and to be able to see how that's shown up in their own life and be able to use what then would come, as you started to work through that dark night of the soul, worked through that fear of rejection, the judgment, being the villain in someone else's story, to eventually get to a place where there was that turning point, right? And I don't want to push you to getting to the turning point yet because I want you to be able to share your raw authentic story. But even those individuals that I have met personally that have gone through very, very similar things, I have sent them directly to you because I'm like, she has walked this dark night of the soul, and it can be some of the most tumultuous, um, gut wrenching experiences for individuals that are going through this. So I appreciate you being raw. I
Yeah.
appreciate you being vulnerable because it truly is that mess sometimes that does become the message and it becomes that strength for other people. And so as you were going through, that tumult, that ooh and that goo of judgment from others, the whisperings, that programming that was being perpetuated on you to be like, oh, well, we love you. We just don't love your choices. And a very condescending It's almost like it feels like the word that keeps coming up to me is like a plastic form of Christ-like love. It just feels so fake. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Um, but that's what it feels like. It's just kind of like this surface level um, smile to your face. Oh, we love you. And then they go and talk behind your back and
Yeah.
judge you. And that's a very discombobulated
Well,
Christ-like love if I've ever seen
yeah.
it. So,
Well, and I appreciate you saying that because there's a point where it's like I don't know who knew what because I had shared with very few people, and unbeknownst to me, um, I had a daughter who in her own like healing and whatnot was sharing with people her experience. Here she is, my kids, I have two beautiful daughters and their dad's gone to jail and now their mom is like saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm struggling with my sexuality." And
mhm,
for my kids, it's like, "Oh my gosh." And so they had said some things to people. And so you never know who knows what
mhm,
or what they're saying and there's just always this like you wander around and you're just like who's looking at you, what are they actually thinking, and nobody freaking comes and asks.
no,
Nobody comes to your door or makes a phone call and says, "Hey, I'm concerned about you," or "Hey, are you okay?
mhm,
Hey, I have some questions, can I ask some questions?"
yes,
And I remember one time I went into my bishop and I had just recently been divorced. Um, and I'm now trying to figure out life on my own and I'm trying to protect my kids, protect myself.
mhm,
And I remember I went and I was having a check-in with my bishop and he said to me, he asked me some questions and I don't he was very kind, very gentle, loving man, like one of just a good soul and trying to come into his own understanding of this. And um, he just said, "I've had some people come to me and tell me about you." And I'm like, "Tell you what about me?"
mhm,
That I was talking to a woman.
mm.
Well, I have a bajillion friends who are women. I have lots of people in my life. Half the people in my life are women.
Yeah.
Because they know this little thing. Now they're going to my bishop. And so that I really was living in what felt like a fishbowl. Everyone's
Mhm,
watching my moves. Um, I, I, I remember going to a play and I went with two of my best friends. One of them
mhm,
was one of the directors of the play, and one of them was just a beautiful soul in my life. And you know
mhm,
what? These are the kind of people I would have held hands with. I held hands with people. I love people.
mhm.
And but I got called in. I was teaching for this school, and people accused me of holding hands with these people, with these
Wow.
women. Like there's so much fear and concern, and I think that's the piece that goes back to the question you asked, like, what was my experience of meeting you inside
Mhm,
of this group that we had met each other in. And I was very much in the crux of all of that, of like, I have no idea. I've worked so hard to build this reputation for myself and how I show up in the world. And I had no idea what people actually thought of me or what they were thinking
mhm,
of me, or would I be accepted into this group of people. I don't know if I can be friends with women or if I can be friends with men, or if women are
mhm,
going to think I've had people say, "Oh my gosh, like I just was afraid you were going to hit on me." I'm like, that's not how this works.
mhm, mhm.
There's so much fear. And so I didn't know, like, would I be accepted there?
Right.
Would I be able to fit in? Would I be accepted in the CrossFit gym? Would I be accepted at my job? Would I be accepted in my family? So
Mhm,
there was just a lot of pain, and people show that face that you were talking about.
mhm.
You feel it. You feel the behind. You feel the bullshit.
Yes. Well, and it's such a parallel too, Jen. Not only this story, but you've had to deal with two of those stories, right? Like this is the judgment that individuals, regardless of their sexual orientation, they become the villains in the story when they aren't following recipe and rote, and the same judgment comes And the same stories come, the plastic, we love you, we're just super disappointed in you behind closed doors and judge you and
Right?
talk about you behind your back. And it's so incredibly difficult. So
It's damaging.
yes, and so you've had a
And
double whammy. Like I feel like you've had two whammies that you've had to deal with in that
yeah, and
experience.
it took me longer to come out of the religion than it did to come
Mm-hmm.
out of the closet. Although I don't say I came out of the closet, I just opened the door and let you in, like to this other piece of myself.
Mm-hmm.
But what I find interesting too is and this is a piece I actually haven't shared this story a lot because lots of people don't want to hear it. They don't ask, they don't want to know.
Mm-hmm.
It's uncomfortable because it causes them to feel,
Mm-hmm.
causes them to actually have to look at their own humanness
Mm-hmm.
and the places where they judge, or the places where they have felt judged, or the places that feel uncomfortable to feel because it pushes edges.
Mm-hmm.
And so I I appreciate the opportunity to share.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there was a moment when you came to me. First of all, remind me to come back to the point when you came to me.
Okay.
Um, I think one of the turning points for me is like how the thought that came to my mind was, how was I brave enough or courageous enough? And I prefer the word courage because courage is heart, core is
Mm-hmm.
heart. Um, to start going down this path that went against everything I was taught,
Mm-hmm.
everything. Um, Other than I feel like I had a good relationship with my God and my higher power, and I felt like I was being pulled in a different direction. I was being pulled into a path of spirituality. That's how the change actually started.
Mm-hmm.
Is recognizing that there was more than what I was actually being taught and being called to that. That was that light on the hill. And that's this broader, like so much more expansive wisdom and knowledge and
Mm-hmm.
intelligence that was awaiting for me outside of this construct that I grew up in. And I think my
Mm-hmm.
soul always knew that. And it was like, I think God was like, how are we gonna get you to have this experience on earth in a way that it'll actually get your attention? You're gonna have to
Wow.
go get everything that you
Mm-hmm.
are taught. And I actually got my answer to the question of, what do I do with these feelings?
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with any of this? Because I will lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
I will lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I went to the temple. I was up in Spokane, Washington,
Wow.
and I didn't know you had to make an appointment for that temple, and I just went. And they let me in. And they pulled out a chair, a folding chair, and put it in the place where you sit. And I'm like, well, this is odd and
Yeah.
really cool at the same time. And I actually there's a spot that that I was told, nevertheless, you can choose for yourself.
Wow.
And I wanted to stand up and scream inside of the temple because I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's a really amazing answer. But hello, what do you mean you're telling me
Mm-hmm.
I can choose for myself when
Right.
there's also all these consequences if I do it this way? I'm not really choosing for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard, and you're gonna be okay either way.
Wow.
And I was like,
Wow.
well, what do I do with this?
Mm-hmm.
And I heard, you have to learn to trust yourself.
Wow. Wow. That is a big one. And because of shame-based ideologies, you had nothing but fear confronting you. And so wow, like that does sound like one of those turning points for you to step into this word trust, because most people lose that innate intuition very, very early on because of the way that we're programmed and the way that we're raised, not only in high demand structures, religions, but in society.
The
Like
society at
we're,
large, yeah.
yeah, it's, I mean, and I've told this in other podcasts before, but the Santa Claus story is the perfect example of why as little children we learn to not trust ourselves anymore. And it is that authority, is those people that are in charge of us that say, these are all the answers that you have to get. And if you don't get these answers, all these bad things are going to happen to you. And so when you have something that maybe doesn't line up with these things that you've been taught, there is such a disconnect and an inability to step into that self-trust. And so when you felt that confirmation, like I can only imagine like how many more hoops you had to jump through to finally go, wait, okay, I did hear that. So what does that look like in my life? And so when you left that day, having that new awareness to go, hey, I got to step into self-trust, all the while the programming going off in your brain saying, no, Jen, if you do this, this bad thing's going to happen. If you do this, this bad thing's going to happen. Yet on the parallel, right? Like you're probably in this mind battle.
Oh yeah. Well, and the reality is, you know what's crazy is from the time I got married to my husband, I remember thinking, I want my kids, I want to do this differently with my kids. I want my kids to trust themselves. Like that became a very important thing, even from a tiny age. And so I knew how I was parented. I wanted to do it differently. And my parents did the best that they knew how. They did the best they knew how. I just wanted to do it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling my kids from tiny, like, you have got to trust yourself. You can't really trust anyone unless you can trust yourself first. Even me. Like you got to
Mm-hmm.
trust yourself over me. I don't know what's best for you. I'm not in your body. I'm not your soul. I can
Mm-hmm.
give you my experience. I can help give you experiences within the parameters that are going to keep you safe so you can start making choices and taking steps to learn how to trust yourself. But don't you have to trust yourself. And it just hit me as you were talking, like, OMG.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am doing the best I can to model trust. And that trust meant that I had to do things that were different than what I was actually teaching them
Mm-hmm.
inside of the constructs of the religion or the society.
Mm-hmm.
And that so this is me like consciously just now with the download patting myself on the back of like, good job, Jen. Like
Mm-hmm.
you've done the hard things, and my kids have been really upset with me. That some of the things I've done have hurt them, but it's hurt their story more than them,
Mm-hmm.
or it's hurt the things that I've taught them, or the things that they know. And same with family members and friends, and yeah, trust.
Yeah, well, and this isn't just like that polished version of trust. This is
No, this
like
is ugly.
this is the gritty,
This is the
vulnerable trust.
this comes back to the piece of when you called me a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and after we had met in this class and we'd had that experience, many years later, you call
Mm-hmm.
me and you say, "Hey Jen, I have something to say to you. One, I'm having my own journey, and I know you'll understand it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to apologize to you if I hurt you while I was inside of the constructs."
Mm-hmm.
And that was very trust building for me. And it was very courageous of you.
Mm-hmm.
Call and be like, one, I know you can support me. I hope you felt supported. You said, I hope you felt supported by me, you, but you letting me know that you were there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really huge.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, thank you. Thank you for your own journey and hard things. And sometimes we have to do that in order to really understand, oh, wait, love people like God loves people.
Yes, and removing the plastic, because even though when I had first met you and loved you, and I didn't even know anything about any of that when I first met you, just instantaneously could see your firecracker energy and just love that part of you. There was still a part of me that was influenced by that deeply embedded construct that when I look back on it, I'm like, oh, like I've always tried to be a very genuine, loving person. But because of those programs, there was a layer of plastic in
Yeah.
that Christ like love. And so, as I had gone through years of my own experiences, my own dark nights of the soul, my own awakening and awareness of some very toxic things that were happening, that was the hard thing that had to happen for me so that I could remove the plastic, take off that layer, and to genuinely show up and say, I am sorry if I was ever any other way than loving and accepting. And what I realized that even in my journey, although it's different than yours, we have a similar journey in being the villain in certain people's stories,
Yeah.
and being the one who maybe went through something difficult, had to walk away from that toxic structure. But what I've come to know is I realized that even though a lot of those individuals just have that plastic layer still embedded there, like I still have so much love and compassion for them as well, because I've been in that place before too, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it does come through sometimes those hard experiences that we have to go through personally in order for us to peel back and come into an even deeper love. And so yes, although I feel like my love was always genuine, there was that layer of plastic that I had to peel off and go, wow, I've learned and I've grown so much.
I'm loving that you're using the term plastic just because that's kind of what it feels like. Like it's a bit suffocating. Like we can
Mm-hmm.
see and people
Mm-hmm.
can see us, but they can't really see us because they can't really access us.
Mm-hmm.
They can't touch us, they can't feel us, they actually can't hear us properly because we've got a piece of plastic or something,
Yeah.
between us. And I have lived that myself. Like even though I um open the door more to who I am, one for myself, but
Mm-hmm.
also to other people, um I I was a very
Scrupulous.
scrupulous person. I'd like to make, yeah, scrupulous person.
I can't even say it.
Um
Scrupulosity.
Scrupulosity.
Okay.
Um religious OCD, and that stuff
Mm-hmm.
doesn't leave easy.
No, it
And
doesn't.
even though I opened the doors and I had finally chosen to um accept to the best of my ability at that point. Um and I'm speaking of like when I first met you, because that was really like the beginning of me stepping onto this path
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to accept it and live it while still being in this community of people who knew me as one way, and now they're seeing me as the other.
Mm-hmm.
And just noticing how the plastic still has influenced much of my life and my decision making and my thinking, my bravery, my
Mm-hmm.
willingness to put myself out there. It still has affected all of that, and I'm in a place of getting new levels of like ripping the plastic off so that people can actually really get to know me
Mm-hmm.
while I'm getting to know those deeper parts of myself as well. And I know you know something of this. You've been going through your own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when we have the plastic on, people can't actually access us.
Mm-hmm.
And we all live in a bunch of layers of plastic. I call it we
Yes.
call it mascots. We all have mascots that we hide behind
I like that.
within. And
Mm-hmm.
it, it's learning how to take off the mascot or to
Mm-hmm.
peel away the layers of plastic and just stand and
Mm-hmm.
trust that we're enough no matter what. Even when we have the people around us saying, you left, but you won't leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Or how can you even think like that? Or they get the politicized version of what they think I am or
Mm-hmm.
how I love, or how I live.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to stand in a place now and go, I'm ready for what I'm looking around like lightning rods. I'm ready for new like layers of trust. Like, don't give me too many hard
Yeah.
challenges. I
Well,
still have that like, oh, I don't want to careful what you ask for kind
yeah.
of sometimes.
Well, it's an ongoing process,
Absolutely.
and I think that it is hard. Like when you were talking about that, this keeps coming into my mind, and so I'm like, okay, I need to say it because I have lived different layers of the dark night of the soul. I have experienced my own betrayal trauma, religious trauma, and for individuals, who do have that layer on, where they think somehow, some way, like you're making just some choice, right? Like you're making just some choice to be like, okay, well, you're walking away. I'm like, there's a part that I don't think people realize. I was recently talking to a young man who is getting ready to go and serve a service mission.
Oh yeah.
And, being in the space I am and still healing through different bouts of religious trauma, as well as working with clients who are healing through religious trauma, being able to convey to him, like, if there's one thing that he can know while he is out, is to truly step into the space of Christ-like love. And I know everyone's going to have a different level of that, but I had to
Right.
convey to him that I could not even step foot into a church without having a panic attack. People need to understand how deep religious trauma goes and the physical implications, the mental implications of going through such a deep betrayal. And then also at the same time, having that organization create a storyline for loved ones and members that belong to that religion that somehow, some way you are in the wrong.
I
And it is absolutely damaging to not only the person that goes through the trauma, but it separates and it disconnects those relationships because it then starts to put up that layer that we've talked about, right? And that rejection is heartbreaking. So someone who's not only trying to pick up the pieces of trauma, but then deal with rejection from their community, from their family, it's another layer of trauma. And so my best advice for this young person was to give him an example of a young man who had actually served in our area. And if I could speak any more highly of him, like I would, because he served as a service missionary at the time. And he was the first person I had ever met that clearly just showed up and loved. There was never any pressure whatsoever. There was such a respect for the trauma. There wasn't gaslighting, manipulative phrases of trying to make someone go back or feel like they were guilty because they weren't going to the building or the church. And that was the one thing that I could convey to this young man that's going to go and spend several years of his money and his time, to realize that not everyone is going to be open and accepting. You're going to meet people that have been severely traumatized, and trauma is a real thing. We have got to hold space, even though we haven't gone through someone else's story. We have to rip off that plastic and we have to hold hands and look deeply into someone's eyes and ask the questions and say, please tell me more. And if we could have people that could hold place instead of running off, hiding, shunning, whispering,
right.
going through the judgment, and they would just sit and hold your hands and say, tell me what happened. Let me hear you. Let me see you. Let me validate you. Let me hold
Right.
you. we would have such less of an we would have such less of an impact on what is happening to so many individuals
Yeah.
that have been wounded and are going through hard things. And I believe that going through my own personal experiences has allowed me to pull off so many layers of that plastic, and that actually got me to that space where even years and years ago when I had met you for the first time, I thought I was fully clear of plastic. I loved everyone and I embraced everyone, but I realized I hadn't. Like, I still had all these layers to pull back, and I showed up and I realized, wow, this is what Christ-like love is. Like, this is love. And it was empowering for me.
I love that you say that because one, just to set your own heart at ease is I don't know that I ever felt anything but love from you. Like
Thank you.
I
I
feel
felt it, Jen. I felt so much love.
yeah, I but there is something to coming to our own awakeness and awareness that way and
Mm-hmm.
being like, whoa. Like I've been having that in the last couple of years too. So a couple of things is one, I don't know that I ever really saw myself as experiencing religious trauma until about a
Mm-hmm.
year and a half ago. And an incident happened inside of my mom's home. And I'm not going to go into details, but it was, in my opinion, it's something that didn't need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of judgment and a lot of things said and a lot of, you know, a lot of hurt, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of hurt. And I double birded my little brother as he walked away, and because he just there was just
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And in those moments I realized I came home, and gratefully I'm with Leah, who didn't grow up inside of the religion, grew up in a different country, in a different culture, and she allowed me to be angry. I cried for 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt this intense anger, and I started recognizing like, oh my gosh, I there is religious trauma here, and it's being administered, sadly, through my family members.
Mm-hmm.
And then recognizing like, oh, there was this, but because I always saw things through what I thought was Christ-like vision, and what's the lesson in it, and what's the positivity, and all of the things, the half of the emotions, that we were allowed to feel.
Mm-hmm.
um that's how I saw things. I didn't recognize that I actually had some spiritual and religious trauma.
Mm-hmm.
um and and that leads me to my next thing of like recognizing like turning points.
Yeah.
I have this beautiful gift of wanting to tempt God. And I remember one point I when I was coming out and um honoring myself and really learning how to have different kinds of communications with God.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I said to him, I will not bring people out of the church, and I will not bring people out, so don't even ask. And as that works, that is exactly what happens. You start speaking your truth, and people
Mm-hmm.
go, wait, there's someone else who feels what I feel.
Yeah.
Wait, I think that person actually might understand. And what do? They start messaging you, hey, can we have lunch?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, can we go on a walk? Will you talk with me? And it was
Yes.
always those two things.
Yes. Well, and as you're saying that, the people that reach out and say, "Hey, you know, I need some support." But then there's also the people, as you are more authentic, you are sharing your story, that they're the ones that are starting to unfriend you, unfollow you, not talk to you anymore. And so all the while you're living these dualities, um, where you are having to deal with the rejection, but all the while there's still all of these individuals that are suffering greatly that need help. They need
Yeah.
support through these difficult times.
And I think that's the piece right there of the villain piece that I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
want to be a part of. And this next like shift that I've been moving through the last couple of years is the recognition of how much I've been betraying myself. And I didn't really recognize that until I had said to God, I'm still okay to call that energy God. Um, when I said something like, "Hey God, I think I'm actually emotionally mature enough to like make tough decisions on my own. Like I got this. I can do this." And he was like, "Okay, go for it." And I had this opportunity to go to India and speak and meet new people. And I met a person who um, has rocked my world. And at the time, I was married to a woman, so I'm now living this life that again goes against everything that I was taught. And I think that I'm actually doing okay in it, not recognizing the plastic that I'm still wearing and how much I'm still judging myself and how much inside of this relationship there's judgment of this and what are people thinking and all this stuff, the stories that go on in our heads. Um, and I get to India and I meet this person and I'm intrigued. I'm like, what's different about this person and why am I intrigued? Why do I want to know her? Why do I want to get to know her? And other than we were very different from the rest of the group that was there, we were probably the most alike in our thinking, in our where we were professionally or where we weren't professionally, where we might have been in relationship with ourselves. And that that place of God saying, you want to know trust? You want to know coming this next level of coming home to yourself? You really want to know about being a righteous rebel, and you're big enough to make decisions on your own? Okay, let's see. And he
Mm-hmm.
walks you right to a cliff, and he's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to step backwards into what you've known that's that's comfortable enough, that's easy enough. It's known, even though you feel like you're slowly dying in this thing. And I mean, zero disrespect to the beautiful soul who I was married to. It was a mismatch of energy. And I had a decision. Was I going to follow these feelings that I now had? Again, even saying that out loud on here brings me a little bit of angst because there's a lot of judgment from there could be a lot of judgment because people don't know the story. They don't ask the questions. They just call it whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's cheating. Um, but I had this thought of like, do I follow my heart and the feelings in my heart of that I'm feeling so it's like it was like when I was like deciding, do I actually live this life of loving another woman? Or do I go back into what I know inside of the constructs because it's easy? It's easy, although it's not. So I'm getting this new level of, okay, you say you're ready, then let's bring it on. You say you're a righteous rebel, bring it on.
Mm-hmm.
And and then with a gentle, unknowing nudge, he flicks you off the cliff, and you're on your own to like, it feels like you're on your own and to make those decisions to go inside like you talk about the dark night of the soul, the tumult, the internal just like consternation and the what do we call it, the wailing and grinding and gnashing of teeth and this, oh, am I ever going to make it out of this and what am I going to do because I know this but it's not working for me and I don't know this and I actually don't know that it's going to work for me,
Mm-hmm.
but I know how I feel. I know how
Right.
I feel inside it. I know what's pulling me to it. Am I going to follow that pull? Again, it's that light on the hill. Are you going to follow the pull?
Mm-hmm.
And um, it's been probably one of the most challenging things, that decisions I've made that way, because it also came with a decision to um, be divorced again, and the
Mm-hmm.
shame that comes with that, and the shame that now comes with that because I left a traditional marriage to be in a same-sex marriage, and now I'm divorcing there, and there's all the stuff with that. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm making a decision to be with another person who I know our souls know each other, but I don't really know, but I actually know really well. And am I going to follow my heart? Am I going to keep following that and trusting this process and trusting myself? And it's been a brutal journey. It also, caused me to, it's the place where I also decided, I actually have never said this out loud, and so I'm just going to say it here. Um, it's the place that I finally made the decision that I needed to withdraw my membership from the
Mm-hmm.
religion, and all the consternation that came with that, but also all the freedom
Mm-hmm.
that has come with that, to just think for myself and to feel for myself, and to start really letting go of all of the voices, all of the plastic, even though I know it's not going to all be gotten rid of right now. It's a We get different levels as we can handle them, and it's been a brutal couple of years
I
getting
like
to
that you say brutal because when you said that, I first thought maybe you just misspoke, but I'm like, wow, that's a really, like, it's amazing to explain it that way because
right. It's
that is
so
what the dark night
liberating.
of the soul does is it like pushes you through some of those hardest experiences, but then when you can rise above that and you can step into that rising phoenix energy and you realize that sometimes those hard things are what do make you powerful and strong today.
Right.
um
Well, and
wow.
it's that recognition of, am I willing to be the villain?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm air quoting for those who might just hear this, and betray other people, because the reality is our decisions can cause hurt, but it's causing hurt to their story. We're
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily hurting them, we're hurting the story or the picture that they had of what was going on, or what our relationship was, or whatever. And
Right.
so coming to terms with that was incredibly brutal, and to recognize that I don't have to carry, I'm not responsible for all of the hurt, or all of the stuff that went on, and all of the pain, that there was two-way. And it's brutal being in a new relationship and watching someone else go through their own dark night, and recognitions of their own hurt, and their own trust things, and um, learning how to have trust in themselves, in a relationship that actually loving and is honorable of trust.
Mm-hmm.
um, it was the decision of, am I going to keep betraying myself, or is it okay to betray other people around me so that I can actually have happiness, and let people know me, actually know me, and to actually speak my voice, and to actually do the things that I say that I'm doing, which is to model what it's like to live alive,
Mm-hmm.
to
Well,
feel the
and
full spectrum of emotions. And
yeah, and I think parts of that relationship, like you said, there are two-way stories. There are aspects of a toxic relationship that you're not getting in today. And so there's not any, a way for a viewer to go in and they can easily make a judgment. They can easily come in. But the thing is that you know what you've experienced, just like you did in a high demand religion. There were things in that relationship that weren't healthy for you either, that I think helped propel you to come into a space of being able to find something that was emotionally, mentally sound for you as well, is what I'm
yeah,
hearing. So,
yeah, well, and honesty is a really big thing for me. Trust is a really big thing for me. I tell, um, I tell people I would rather you trust me than love me, because if you trust me, you're probably going to love me. Um, Honesty for myself, being as honest as I can with myself, knowing that, looking back, we're like, oh, I wasn't as honest as I could have been, but you're like, you're as honest as you can be in those moments. And really, for me, it's a getting to know yourself, and it's an allowing of other people. It's that kicking that door open. I believe everybody lives in a closet of some kind. Everybody has to
Mm-hmm.
come out some way or another. And by my choosing to be honest with my story with myself, which isn't always easy. And the I don't love the labels. The being gay piece or the I love a woman piece, that has been really effing hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't always known how to deal with that. And it caused me to lose my voice in a lot of ways, because
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid to speak. I was afraid that I'm not religious enough, or that I'm not gay enough, or that I'm not, I don't
Mm-hmm.
fit the molds.
Mm-hmm.
Like my bio says, I don't fit the molds. I live my life to the best of my ability, from how I feel and how I love and what feels right for me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I really suck at it.
Isn't that like that's part of being human though? And I think that it is through the stumbling around, it is going through some of these hard things, right? Like because we have been raised in such a perfectionistic, you got to do all the things exactly right. And then if you don't, let's punish ourselves, shame ourselves, beat ourselves into a big black hole until we are punished enough and then keep beating ourselves up, right? Like it's this toxic programming. And so, yes, we do need to show up in life and go, wow, I made a decision that hurt someone else. And being able to show up and say, I'm sorry, and coming into that space, but also being able to walk through that next doorway of saying, I love myself. And from this experience, I learned this. You're willing to apologize to another person, but you're also willing to love and to forgive yourself and realize that that journey was exactly what you needed
That right there.
to learn and to grow and to get different dimensions of walking through yet another doorway of life experience to then step into a truer form of authenticity. And authenticity is not a lovingly accepted in certain formats, because it does break barriers. It does shake the boat. It does come into a space where it does cause people to unfriend you, unfollow you, shun you, judge you. It creates these patterns, right? And then you really do have to go into this self-reflection, and you have to step into being faced with having to come into self-love, but then also
And
stepping
not feel
in.
bad about it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the other piece that I have found fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
When I find peace with something, or I feel good, there are parts of me, Leah calls it echoes of my shadow, or echoes of patterns, that want to feel bad. I want to feel
Mm-hmm.
bad that I feel good. I want to feel bad that I've moved on.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, wait a second, like, and just recognizing those things, and instead of attaching to the old behavior, going, thank you for the acknowledgement and the recognition that this is how I used to behave and how I used to
Mm-hmm.
show up, and this is how I do it now.
Yes. And we get to love those
That,
parts of ourself that do show up as shadows, right? They are the shadow selves. They are the parts of us that have those dark corners and those dark edges. And usually when we sit with those dark corners, we sit with those dark shadows, there's usually a story beneath. And that's what I love about working with clients and doing shadow work, is when we give ourselves enough of a chance to sit with it, we usually come into a space where we are able to pull that plastic back. We are able to step out of the mascot or the mask per se, and
yeah.
we come into that true sovereign part of who we are, and that is love. Those other parts are just stories, they're traumas, they're experiences, they're things that go through our generational lines, that keep us stuck in these ego attachment phases. But that's the beautiful part, right? Is we get to befriend the ego. We get to befriend the shadow. And we get to sit with those parts of ourself and learn so much more. And
Yeah.
it's a scary thing. It's scary because it does break you out of a cookie cutter structure.
Right. Right. Well,
Um,
I find it so comical when some of the things I've done is I've kind of pulled myself into isolation.
mhm.
Uh, I've let go of a lot of things for lots of different reasons, but learning how to really get quiet and to sit back and like you say, befriend the ego. And in that befriending, it's a sitting back and watching it pinball sometimes, like bing 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 inside my brain, and have this battle with itself while I'm sitting and observing, going, wow, I don't have to buy into all of that. I can sit here and watch it happen and be like, that is some crazy stuff.
Mhm.
Now what am I going to do with this information?
Yeah.
What is the next step for me without having to get inside of the pinball and actually be the pinball?
Right. And I think for individuals that are listening to this that do struggle with self-trust, and the pinball, right? It's the back and the forth. It's the punisher, the victim. It's like back and forth, like what do you feel would be a good suggestion for someone that is dealing with that to be able to just sit with it, because it is
It's
difficult. It can be
uncomfortable.
easy to go and have a thought, have a feeling that's incredibly destructive and go and have a dance party with it, and it'll bring you down. Like you'll self-destruct. And
Yeah,
so what would be your suggestion
yeah.
for someone that's struggling with that to go, hey, I mean, I would say, first of all, awareness, recognize that it's going on. It's
And that
always
it's
our
even
first step
happening,
to go,
right?
oh, this is happening, right? Like, I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. Like,
Oh
that's
my
one
heck,
of
it's
my,
so big.
a huge thing. So I would say that's my first, let's
It's so
put
big,
that tool into the ring. And then where would you
right?
go from there?
Look, this. I spent a lot of time doing this, arms folded,
Mm-hmm.
rocking,
Wow.
just movement. Get out and move. Like the body is the slowest way we learn things.
Mm-hmm.
It learns, but it tends to be a little bit slow. And so I love in part of my coaching, what I do, which is where play comes in as well, is
Mm-hmm.
movement.
Yeah.
It when I'm feeling some of that stuff going, sometimes I've learned how to sit with it and just watch it. And sometimes I feel actually crazy. Other times I
Mm-hmm.
can sit and laugh, or I'll say to Leah, "Oh my gosh, the battle I have going on in my head right now is
Mm-hmm.
so like crazy to watch."
Mm-hmm.
And and then sometimes I pace, or I'll go walk the park, or something that moves the
Mm-hmm.
energy, that allows me to move the energy, and maybe it is turn on music. For me, sometimes that can be a distraction from what's going on versus just staying with the silence and letting movement happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if music works for you, and you can do without it distracting what's going on, and so that you can actually know what that is, and then make a choice. You make a decision, and you
Mm-hmm.
recognize, this is what I tell pretty much everybody I know. And I tell myself this a lot, and Leah reminds me of this a lot, is it means nothing about you.
Mm-hmm.
Your decisions mean nothing about you. It means you made a decision, you made a
Mm-hmm.
choice. And sometimes those things work really beautifully for us, and other times they don't. And we want to call that a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's what I think about mistakes. It's kind of, we're living a movie, right? We got to
Mm-hmm.
start looking at our life differently. It's a game, it's a movie. We take it so damn seriously.
Yeah.
I'm still guilty of that. And it's part of my own learning still is mistakes. It's like this movie. What happens in movies? They have an A roll, the movie that we see,
Yeah.
and then they have all of the bloopers and the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
They have that tape that think and take five and take
Yep.
82 and to recognize that it might take us five times to learn something, and it might
Yeah.
take 95 times to learn something.
Yeah.
Every time is another layer of the lesson. It's another layer that we're peeling back of the plastic. It's
Yeah.
another step inside of ourselves.
Yeah.
And this way to start gaining trust in ourselves is to continue to make a decision and to feel it out. How did that feel?
Mm-hmm.
How did that work for me in the ways that I thought it would? Do I want to continue on that path? Or do I need to backtrack a little bit and take the other side of the fork in the road?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to make a different decision and realize it means nothing about you?
Yes. And when I started to eliminate shame out of my vocabulary, it was one of the most freeing thing for me.
Right?
Because I was able to step into um, stepping out of survival and coming into living. And when I've been able to implement that with my daughter at home, I have two adult children, but the teenage daughter that I have at home, and being able to help her understand, let's look at our life choices and shift the narrative. We've got to take the shame out, and we've got to start to, I love what you say, is just treating this like, a video game or something, right? Like, and being able to laugh, take those moments of laughter, but also stillness if we need it, but also movement if we need it, and really just coming into the space of going, okay, how does this feel in my body?
Yep.
And what do I need to do? But also not buying everything that your head says, because your head is not
And probably very
correct.
little of what it says.
Very little of what it says is correct. And so when we can start, at least for those that are very analytical on the planet, to realize, okay, not all of my thoughts are true. So we have a choice whether we're going to go and play ring around the rosies, or whether we can make a choice to say, you know what, old programming, I'm going to do something to rewire the brain. And we have to do the same thing with our feelings. And this one has definitely been a challenge for me because I do feel things so
Oh,
deeply
I hear you. I
that
feel you.
that it's like sometimes when we feel emotions so deeply and we've navigated our whole life off of emotion, that anything you feel, and if it triggers something from your past, it feels as real as if you were living it back then. But we have to remind the body that we're not in that.
Not us anymore.
Yes, that's not the story anymore. And we come into presence, we come into that, the movement, right? We come into stillness, we come into the walk, we come into all these things that we can remind the body this is a new story. And those are the habits and the patterns that help us step into living alive rather than surviving. And we have a
Yeah.
lot of people in survival mode. We have a lot of people
Oh,
with nervous systems that are on overdrive.
absolutely.
And this is our wake up call. This is what we have to do, is we have to start taking that empowering tool and implementing it in a new way, because then that's how we rewire the
Yeah.
neurons in our brain.
I so love that you're saying that. Like, it's a part of what we teach is like, and why I say living alive is because
Mm-hmm.
if you actually are paying attention, like we are walking among the living dead.
Mm-hmm.
People are so disconnected from themselves, from their bodies, from they're just it's so challenging to actually be present with yourself and to feel, and especially in all of the stuff that's going on in the last few years, and there's it's challenging, and it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to be disconnected and disembodied and walking around as the living dead than to actually be living alive, experiencing feelings, experiencing honoring yourself,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing what it feels like to love yourself so you can actually love another person, to experience like beauty of colors and
Mm-hmm.
sights and sounds and smells and tastes. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you start coming home here, and I love that you said when you started getting rid of shame, you started feeling alive because in who is it? Hawkins Power
Mm-hmm.
versus Force, he's got the energy levels, and shame is at 20, right at death. right above
Yes.
death.
Mm-hmm.
And then guilt is right above it. And
Yeah.
I think it's Brene Brown who says the difference between shame and guilt is shame says, or guilt says, I made a mistake. Shame said, I am the mistake.
Yeah.
And so learning the difference of all of that is all part of the learning to live alive, the
Mm-hmm.
letting go of all of the bullshit that we've
Mm-hmm.
been taught or had put on us or that we've taken upon us by choice.
Yeah.
For me, part of that was recognizing that I'm not responsible for other people's feelings. That's
Mm-hmm.
a really challenging one for me, especially walking the paths that I walk
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing like my choices may hurt other people's stories. My intention is never to hurt anybody. I love people. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I want to hate people, but I love people.
Mm-hmm.
But I get tired of what is wanted to be heaped on me because they don't want to feel.
Yeah. Well,
Learning how to let that go and
yeah.
just be right here.
And that puts us back into people pleasing patterns.
Oh, I was amazing at
That,
that.
yeah, I'm like, well, and that's what it is there's a line of showing up on the planet and being thoughtful and considerate of other people. Like, that's important. That's part of being a human on the planet, being respectful. But the people pleasing is a totally different line. And to have to walk on eggshells, not be authentic to yourself is actually very damaging, and that is where
Oh,
we are. That's what pushes a lot of people into that survival mode, that numbing mode, people that shut down. And so I think being able to come into that power of mighty play, right? Like, prior to getting into mighty play, we talk about coming into presence. We talk about the safety of being able to go, oh, I had this thought, I had this feeling, wow, this is how it's showing up. Wow, what a show. And laughing it off, or going, wow, I don't have to take all of this so seriously. And then also, along with letting go of shame, being able to let go of judgment. Like, there's a certain level of where we do have to use
we've got to
judgment.
have
We
judgment.
have to have judgment, but there's a line that it crosses over into toxicity, where we have, when we have breached that point of healthy judgment, we have to eliminate that from the vocabulary and start to step into that reclamation of self-love and start to play again, because we do take things so seriously as adults that we forget, because we have been traumatized, we have gone through hard things, we're contending with nervous systems that are in overdrive. But when we can get back into those five senses, like you were saying, come into presence and then come into the body instead of disconnecting, checking out of the actual body. This is where I feel like, when someone is feeling stuck, like watching you being embodying the body, like you coming into the body and using mighty play as your forum to help others heal is beautiful. And so I would love for you to tell someone, like, listening, like, how this has shown up for you. Because there is probably someone sitting there going, well, I can't get out of my thoughts or my feelings, or I'm just feel so bonded to this trauma. And now we're starting to bring in these tools of going, hey, there's a different way. You don't have to be a prisoner to this story anymore. And what would you suggest if someone's feeling stuck, to
Yeah.
start to step into mighty play?
Well, I think, thank you for that. It's interesting that this is part of like what is so important to me now, because I was a very serious child. I was very shy, reserved, and
Mm-hmm.
yet funny at the same time. Like when I like girls camp, I I'm the person everybody wanted to be. I know that sounds egotistical. That's just the truth. And I've had that brought back to my attention recently of like who I am intrinsically. People
Mm-hmm.
are like, we just wanted to be you. Like you made camp, you were camp.
Well, that's what the
And
firecracker is. Like you came to the planet with that gift.
yeah,
Like
and but I had
it's
to have
what you
places.
embody.
Yeah, I had to have places that I could feel safe
Mm-hmm.
letting that out. And I used to call it like when I was performing a lot, I used to think, oh, I love performing because I get to get on stage and I get to be a different person. And then one day I
Mm,
realized I'm like, no, I just get to be me.
right.
I just
Mm-hmm.
get to be me. And so play, it was interesting because in the personality test, the color test, um, my white and blue were really close to each other, like almost equal. Then my play was down a little bit, and then my red was like really down. I've learned to balance those out because we're all of them. I'm not going to get into how I feel about all that kind of stuff, but we're all of them. We really are all of them. And depending on what situations we're in, one may show up as more dominant than another in certain places. But I really had to learn how to step into my play uh, and recognize that it is such a vital part of our well-being. I started looking at little kids, and I love being with little kids because it brings that part out in me. Your voice changes and how you show up and how you move your body changes. And and I remembered what it was like to be like on a playground playing foursquare or or flag football or soccer or just marbles and the carefreeness of that. And I thought I need more of that in my life because that stuff I believe, in my opinion, is taught out of us. Like it's not okay to play. We have to be productive and we have
Mm-hmm.
to be achieving and we have to be climbing ladders and we have to be all of these things. And play isn't one of those. Now, depending on where we are, maybe financially, we'll do some playing. Like some of us have boats or some of us have toys that we get to play with, but we don't actually get down and play like kids play.
Mm-hmm.
We forget the joy and the healthiness of being in the dirt, of
Mm-hmm.
recognizing and watching an ant or a pile of ants do their thing. Or I don't love spiders, but watching them build a web is so
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. Sitting here and watching a bird tear off limbs of a tree and build a nest is absolutely, that's playful. You can get
Mm-hmm.
into this nature. And then what happens when you step onto a foursquare box on a playground and you just let yourself be? And I have a very competitive side, and I've had to learn how to let some of that go and to just be in the moment. But getting out, yesterday we went and we did a hike and we played in nature and then we paddleboarded and we just relaxed and rested. That's playfulness. And all of that just allows our systems to just
Mm-hmm.
can do it when we can do it without judgment, when we can I'm feeling this sense. She doesn't know this and you don't know this, but I'm feeling this download like we need to ask Leah because she's here
Oh, that'd
what
be beautiful.
adding this to her life has brought to her, because we've been having this conversation of like, because I sometimes I'm like, people don't listen to me, they don't, play's not important, they don't understand, blah blah blah. And she's been telling me things like it's changed my world.
Mm-hmm.
Leah, are you willing? She's looking at me like, oh, seriously, Jen?
Yes, let's do it.
We brought Leah onto the scene. So we were just recapping, just to recap really quickly, just talking about how play is such an important part of our health and part of our well-being and living a life, and how play actually is one of those, it's one of those simple things that it regulates the system, it gets the lymphatics moving,
Mm-hmm.
it oxygenates the body, it helps the body move all of the feelings and emotions through, but in a way that doesn't have to be so drudging and laborious. Like we actually can enjoy learning and even dark nights of the soul when we can incorporate play and movement into what we're doing. Um, it boosts health in all of the ways and more that I just shared. And so as I was talking with you and your audience, Cynthia, I saw Leah sitting over there and I just had this thought like three or four times, like you should ask Leah how, because we've been having this conversation, how play has like raise the energy in her own world and in her own growth process and all of that. So Leah, just a quick introduction, is in the India story that I was telling you about, that I met someone. Leah
Mm-hmm.
is that someone. And it's we've been God's given us an interesting learning journey, and play is part of that. And
Mm-hmm.
having a buddy to adventure and play with has been such a beautiful thing, but watching her grow in it. And so just I just had a thought to have you share a little bit, because I can say it all day long how it helps people, and but actually having someone share their personal experience that
Yes,
happens.
and welcome to the show, Leah. It's
Uh,
nice to have you, and I think that's beautiful. I love that we're just going with it, and I think what your message is going to be a beautiful ad, to be able to help the listeners implement what can be so incredibly hard at times.
yeah, I appreciate you inviting me on so unexpectedly. That's the whole playful nature that we get to be in. Um,
So play is a rebellious thing.
it is. I at first I had a rub with what you were saying because I'm like, what do you want me to talk about play? I've always been playful, but I think there's a part of play that we don't often talk about is that you have to, there's a part of you that has to let go and be able to be in a place of relaxation and
Mm-hmm.
letting go of the narrative, letting go of your to-do list, letting go of um, expectations, letting go of everything that you think your day or your life or your role should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always loved working with kids. I have a very playful nature, but I do have places where I found it difficult to pull away from the rigidity of my schedule or all the things that I had to do. And in the last couple of years, I've really had the opportunity to go out of my comfort zone and um, one, learn to celebrate. I mean, when you
Mm.
think of kids, um, they are naturally celebrate celebratory of themselves and their achievements, and it's not until they get outside influence that they start putting themselves down and looking down on themselves and judging themselves, comparing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Celebration has been a big thing for me. I remember when I first started talking with Jen, and she would, you know, celebrate little things, and at first I had such a rub with that. Like it almost felt condescending. It felt
Mm-hmm.
patronizing just because that wasn't the world that I was accustomed to. And it wasn't how I talk to myself in my own head. So I feel like part of play is celebrating all the small things, finding joy
Mm-hmm.
in all the small things. Um, and then there's a, like I said before, it's a letting go. So if you're always constantly go, 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 and you've put all these things, because you're trying to find your worth in it, you don't have time to just relax and let things unfold as they're going to unfold. And I think that's another big part of play we don't talk about is just the letting it unfold, letting it be. And
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten a chance to do that um, with tantrums at times, but
Yes.
because it's hard to
Tantrums
let
are
go.
allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also part of play, right? Like it's not always going to go the way that you want it to go, but yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think too, part of what helps in playfulness of this is part of what we do is creativity,
Mm.
and play, allowing yourself to play. This is one thing that I had to learn, like, because she's brought play in a different way to my life. Um, you've got to be able to play to have creativity and to recognize that it's messy. It's not always. She brought me this book called The Line Book. It's a
Mm-hmm.
cool book. Cynthia, I would encourage you to get the Line Book and do it. I found myself in, it's playful.
Awesome.
I found myself in so much consternation and tears going through this damn book. Like,
Hmm.
and I was like, what the, because it caused me to push edges
Oh,
in ways
Because
of
there's
drawing a
no
line. There's
rules.
no
You
rules.
get to make it up. Like
wow.
there's no guidelines. There's no one telling you how to do it. There's no instructions. It just says make this and you just roll with it. That's one place where I play really well is in my painting and in
Mm-hmm.
writing stuff. Like you just throw things around and see what works. And spaghetti
And
and
my
some.
perfectionistic brain was like,
Yes. Well, and especially as children, we are taught so early to color in the lines.
lines.
We're taught when we learn handwriting, it has to look just a certain way. And so the beauty of being able to step back into that childlike curiosity is being able to spill the paint and smush it with your fingers, see what it
Right?
feels like in
That.
between,
What
and
does
to
it look
get
like?
messy. And as a little girl, I loved being in the dirt and just going and picking the fresh fruits, the vegetables off the vine, being barefoot. And I had an experience the other day, and this is part of the way I've implemented play as an adult is I go out barefoot in my garden, but I was also experiencing a lot. And where I'm in a lot of the spiritual realms, I'm in the energy realms a lot. I have to be reminded to get into my body. And so
Right?
what I did, this is
Mhm.
before the weekend that I got to plant my actual seeds that are growing seeds in it now, but I went in to one of my middle garden beds, sat in my garden and rubbed mud and dirt all over my
Yes.
body. And my husband was peering out the kitchen window
My wife
going,
went
"What
crazy.
are you doing?" But he totally like loved me through all of it. And it was one of the most grounding, embodying experiences for me to step back into my inner child and to come back into the body, right? We are talking all about somatics. We're talking about those five senses, like letting the nervous system go back into regulation. And that for me was so healing to feel the vibration of Mother Earth against my body and to calm the nervous system down and to be messy, like to go in and to have all this dirt all over me. When a lot of times you're like, oh gosh, I've got to wipe my feet off. But I just walked in with my dirty feet, just like a little kid. And it was so empowering. So I love that you're sharing this because we have to give ourselves permission for it to look messy and to be messy. So, so beautiful. Love your
Right?
share.
In the
I
mess.
love it. I love magic in the mess. That's it right
Yes, it is. It's embracing that mess. But I also loved how you said, the letting go. And my goodness, like coming back into that childlike state, we're taking a big enmeshment. Like I think about those. Do you remember back in the 80s when we used to have those rubber band balls?
there. Oh
Where
yeah.
like they're like this big. Like I feel like we are like one by one just taking these rubber bands
It's so
off,
funny that
right?
you said that because as I was writing this morning, I wrote about that very thing.
Oh wow. We're on the same wavelength.
How the unraveling
It
of all of the
is.
things and that it's this wild. Have you ever like cut into a golf ball
Mm.
and
Oh, I've seen it, but I haven't done
and
it
just
personally. Yeah.
that's what it feels like sometimes. Sorry to spit on you. Um, and it's just it's wild and it's crazy and
Yes.
it's not linear and you have to be willing to let go and just allow it to happen.
Yes. And that does come with some of those raw emotions. That comes with the tears, the anger, the jealousy, like all of these parts of ourselves that we were told were wrong or bad that made us, believe we were the bad girl, the bad boy. And we have to allow those things to be our greatest teachers. Just like I said before, that mess is actually that polarity that we need to have it revealed to us what we came to get on this earth journey, right? Like in this body that we came to experience life with. It's the messes that are actually our teachers. It's not something to be carrying this big huge backpack of shame around on the planet. It's actually that childlike curiosity that goes, ooh, I got this all over my fingers. And how does that feel? Do I like how that feels? And if I don't like how it feels, then I get to make that choice to go, yeah, I'm not comfortable with that. But in
Right?
this, do I love how this feels? Like, does this bring me joy? And it's that part of our adult self that gets to reclaim not only the childlike curiosity and the mighty play, but truly reclaiming that sovereign soul and coming back into trusting self again, because we lost that at an early age.
That come with
Right.
that.
Well, and it's that
Yes.
remembering that all of those experiences mean nothing about us.
Yes.
If,
Mm-hmm.
we make a mess now, and I've learned to be like, I want to be like, all frustrated if the milk falls out of the fridge or an egg falls off and it's splatting, and then I go, well, that made a cool design. Like, dang, like that's, and what do? We wipe it up.
Yeah.
We take care of the mess in the moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes we weren't able to do that when we were younger, but now it's that remembering that it's not who we are. It doesn't
Yes.
define us. It's simply experiences we went through. Now, some of them left marks.
Yes.
Still doesn't mean that's who we are. It means it's a reminder of an experience that
Mm-hmm.
shaped us or taught us or helped us to grow. It's not who we are. We're not the scar. It's
Yes.
just a reminder of an experience.
Mm-hmm.
This life is just experiences. It's
Mm-hmm.
all of the takes.
Yes. It is. That's such a beautiful way to like start bringing everything that we've talked about together, because it really truly brings us back into the letting go, but then also the reclaiming, right? Letting go, but also the reclamation.
And the spiritual piece of that is
Mm-hmm.
letting go of all the things we've been taught that pull us away from who we are, which is a divine, sovereign, beautiful. We would bow at our own feet if we
Mm-hmm.
recognize our own greatness.
Wow. So amazing. Like, I feel like that just is like the icing on top of the cake.
I love it.
So, yes, I would love to hold space if there's anything else that either you or Leah would like to share today as we close up our podcast today.
I think the thing that just comes to my mind is just remember to be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with
Yes.
yourself in all your experiences and to do your best to laugh
Mm-hmm.
and to have fun and to trust that you're right where you're supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
or you could be somewhere different, and that whatever's going on in your world is this sometimes brutal piece of your growth and your um discovering your own, coming back to your own home of divine
Mm-hmm. Yes. Wow.
gentle.
Beautiful. Is there anything else you'd like to share, Leah?
I don't think so.
I love that you've added this brightness and this beauty to today's podcast as well, and that Jen listened, because I do appreciate your share and that beauty that together you guys do bring as you are teaching, and I thank you both incredibly for being willing to show up, and especially Jen for being vulnerable and sharing something that is so hard and difficult, but for others to be able to see and to feel and to watch you kind of rise through those ashes. Because just like I said in the beginning, a lot of those really, really hard things that we go through, yes, it does risk the rejection. It risks the people who unfollow, they unfriend, they judge, they gossip. Yes. But there's a reason why we rise and we come through these dark nights of the soul, and that is to come on this other side of those that can take your mess and your message, and to also use that as an empowerment to say, I'm not alone. And so, for any of you that are out there that feel like you're alone, just remember that you aren't. So, that's something that I thank you again for coming. Anything else you'd like to share?
Oh my gosh. No, this has just been fun. I appreciate the opportunity to really start sharing in bigger ways my story and to use
Mm-hmm.
my voice that way. Even if it means I get to maybe be the villain in someone else's story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always thought that was okay when Leah said that. I'm like, yeah, go ahead, be the villain in someone else's story. Like that's cool. Like I'll support you in that.
Yeah.
And and that recognition that, oh, that's where I'm at too. And so I just appreciate the opportunity and to share some things in a way that I haven't shared them before, and
Mm-hmm.
to reveal some things that I haven't revealed before, and knowing that I can trust that,
Mm-hmm.
and that um, that opportunity to stay true to myself,
Mm-hmm.
and even if it means betraying the stories of some other people. So thank you for the opportunity,
Yeah.
and that I look forward to doing this again with you next week on my platform.
Yes, I wanted to make sure that the audience knew that you hosted your own podcast. So go ahead and share the name of that podcast so
Thank
our
you.
listeners can look for that, and I'll share that in the podcast notes as well. So,
Awesome. Thank you. So I host a podcast called Living Courageously Exposed, and it's where we do what we just did here. I kind of
mm-hmm.
more or less caused Cynthia to run, run it the way that I like, which is just ask questions and let people talk. So it's a kicking the doors open for other people to share their stories and their lived experiences and how they are learning to live alive and really own their own authentic journeys as well, and to vocalize it. So
Yes.
we give space for everybody's stories because they matter.
Yes, thank you for vocalizing that because I'm right on board with you. Like everyone's story matters. Your voice matters. And so like being able to use that courage, right? I loved how you referenced how that comes from the heart. These are not always easy things, but it also does allow others to be able to step into their own authentic truth when you give that space for others to speak their truth as well. So thank you again. And I'm looking forward to next week, just kind of living off the cuff. No structure. We're just going to show up and we're going to do the interview. And I'm excited to share from my heart too. And I'm hoping that my message and my mess can give someone else strength. And so, you know, just like today's conversation, it's always my intention to share. And after today's episode, I feel like we have so many beautiful nuggets to be able to help you come back into that trust and that aliveness and that true joy, and to know that they're possible. To know that when we really come into that awareness of our thoughts and our feelings and start to like debunk some of those lies that have just been entrenched in the DNA and the programming, that we can move into that space of joy, and it's not super far off. Like when we step into that presence, we step into mighty play, it's right around the corner. And so I love how our conversation sparked all of these beautiful, beautiful tools, and to be able to come into a space of living alive. So I am wishing all of you the best on your holistic healing journey, sending you strength and hope for those of you that are going through that dark night of the soul. And just know that you don't have to overhaul your whole entire life, and you don't have to wait for it to be the perfect moment. It's always the perfect moment. Every single experience you are going through is perfect. So if you can just place your hands over your heart and take a beautiful conscious breath and just say yes to curiosity of being able to step outside into that space of mighty play, letting yourself laugh, be in that space of wonder, it is really right around that corner. And so thank you for being here. And until next time, keep choosing trust, inviting joy, and don't forget that the real magic comes in those simple moments of play. Thank you for listening to the Discover Divinity podcast. If this podcast resonates with you, I invite you to check out discoveringdivinity.com. You will find resources to reclaim your sacred, sovereign spirituality. Here, you can join the Discover Divinity community, where we have free online community classes, as well as done-for-you courses and programs. Navigating the unique personal path to wholeness can feel overwhelming at times. If you would like further support or are ready to take your healing empowerment to the next level, I offer one-on-one intuitive sessions in a variety of different packages. where we will discover, release, create, reclaim. Discover your innate wisdom that lies within. Release the imbalances that prevent you from living your truth. Create harmony in body, heart, mind, spirit, energy, and relationships. Reclaim your sovereign soul. It is time to discover new possibilities. It is time to discover you.